So I manage our recruiting coordinators. I've been with the company for over 2 years. I also run our internal programs like our interviewer training program, our referrals program, and our alumni community, which we'll talk a little bit about in just a bit. So here's a quick look at our agenda. Awesome. So we only have about 22 minutes. I'm going to do my best to cruise through this so that we can have some time for questions. Fortunately, because we have lunch next, I can stick around and answer any questions that you have if we don't get enough time there. So I want you to meet DigitalOcean. One of our core values is love, specifically that love is what makes us great. And as a business, we love our customers and our beautifully simple products. And as a recruiting team, we love our candidates. On the business side, hosting no longer happens on a server in your home. It happens in the cloud. And at DigitalOcean, we're giving a community of over 3.5 million developers the opportunity to host their apps, projects, and even entire businesses on our platform. We differentiate ourselves from our competitors by our user experience and our design-centered way of thinking. So if the products built for our customers are based on that user experience, simplicity, scalability, we all know we love the word scale, shouldn't our experience as a recruiting team for our candidates mimic that? So we needed to take this outdated experience of servers in your home and match it to the experience our customers are having, and ultimately that these candidates who will go on to join us as employees are fueling. So before we talk about the how, there is someone you have to meet. I mentioned we have some stickers for you. This is Sammy, our lovable mascot. In the middle, you'll see a new hire's desk awaiting their arrival on day one. We've got one DigitalOcean logo and about 10 Sammys. We have all those kinds of stickers here for you today. I actually love this photo on the upper right-hand side. This was taken at a company called Unbabble's All Hands. Unbabble is part of our Global Hatch program. It's a program designed to help, it's an incubator program designed to help startups as they scale and launch. And Sammy travels too. Sammy's made it to the waters of the Dominican Republic, Mount Kilimanjaro, and of course often hangs in our New York office eating donuts and admiring the view. Some of you may recognize Sammy from the HBO show Silicon Valley. He garnishes the desks of a lot of the Pied Piper developers in the show. So none of the content that we're going to look at today would make any sense if you hadn't met Sammy. And I hope by sharing this with you, you kind of get a sense for the talent brand we're trying to represent through the projects we'll discuss today. So jumping into the pre-interview prep stage, we've spent a lot of time building out resources and frameworks that distribute candidate resources and support at scale. And perhaps more importantly, that our team can manage at scale. So my team is me and 2 recruiting coordinators supporting a team of recruiters. How many of you here feel like you have a lean team? Just about everyone, right? So it's been really important that we not only find a way to distribute resources at scale, but that we can also distribute knowledge at scale within our own teams, so supporting the recruiters. So I'm a visual person. I'd like to show you how we've gone about automating our candidate prep resources. But first, I need to give you a little historical context. So when I joined DigitalOcean, this is what our interview confirmations looked like. How many of you have sent or received a similar looking template, right? This was our fanciest of the 20 because it had a link to Google Maps. So we went through this really big overhaul about 18 months ago, and we basically exported all of the templates we had stored in our ATS. We used Greenhouse. It was about 20 different email communications. Dumped them in a Google Drive, worked with our director of communications and the entire recruiting team to vet every sentence. I don't think a single line went unedited. This was like a 14-page doc with maybe 200 comments when we were finished with it. So while we were finessing the language as a team, we actually hired a freelance developer to build us some on-brand templates. I say on-brand because we got maybe 2 or 3 assets from our web experience team and had this freelance developer build some not so complicated HTML code. I say not so complicated because I would need to manipulate those 3 templates into about 10. So it needed to be simple enough for me to work and iterate on in the future. Who wants to see the finished product? So I know this is far away. You'll get the slides so you can look at the language, but I'll walk you through this here. So on the left, you'll notice we have an immediate DigitalOcean logo. Of course, we've got not 1, but 2 Sammys throughout this template. And on the left, you'll see a link to do.co/candidates. I'll show you a screenshot of that website in just a moment. It is mobile friendly, so you can check it out as well. But it's our candidate resources page. And historically, we were actually attaching documents to every single template. PDFs on our benefits, FAQs for the office they were interviewing in, you name it. We had 19 different documents stored in Greenhouse, and the likelihood that you would attach the wrong one was quite high. So now we store all of this content online, and it's in our content management system, which is managed by our web experience team. You'll also notice a specific FAQ for the on-site experience in NYC. And then moving over to the right-hand side, we have a series of links on the lower right-hand rail. We have a link to our All True library, which I'll talk more about in a moment. We have a link to our journey guide, which gives recommendations for local coffee shops and restaurants as recommended by our employees. So someone who's new to New York can come to our office for their interview and actually go to the places that our employees like to hang out at. And then lastly, a solicitation to review us on Glassdoor, which we include in just about every email. So let me tell you a little bit more about our candidate resource page. So we built out this library, Candidate Resources and Help. Ignore the blue widget on the right-hand side for a moment. You'll see we have FAQs for every location in which we conduct interviews, but we also give candidates a really nice line of sight into how they can prepare, but more specifically, how we evaluate them. So you can't see that section below, but if you check it out on mobile, you'll see it. We teach all of our interviewers the STAR method, and we find that by telling candidates that, they can then come into their interview knowing what kind of answers our interviewers are actually looking for. So we give them resources to learn the STAR method, we give them links to read articles from different employees and blog posts, and we give them basically anything they would need or the questions that they would ask. What's really nice, I mentioned we do a lot of knowledge management for the recruiting team as well. This serves as a really nice framework for recruiter prep calls, so when they're briefing a candidate before that on-site journey, it's a nice way to kind of walk them through the site, make sure they know how to prepare, how we evaluate, and FAQs for that experience. We also include a whole library of reading material, so if they want to take it a step further, they can read quotes from our remote employees about why they love being remote at DigitalOcean, and various blog posts on our culture. So again, this is super scalable. It's all managed in one place. So when we do need to make a change, we're making it once instead of 10 times, and we don't even have to update that template that you saw from Greenhouse. Actually, I will mention the only thing that's not automated in this template, can anyone guess? What's the one thing we have to manually do every time? The names. So we actually can get the interviewer names in there, but the titles are not automated. So no ATS is perfect, am I right? All right, so let's jump ahead to All True. I mentioned this blue widget. If you visit any one of our career pages, you'll see it jumping up and down in the bottom right-hand corner. So this follows you around our entire career experience. We have specific department pages, so meet each team. You'll see that widget there. And if you click into it, it takes you to our All True library. So All True is a library for videos recorded by our employees sharing their experiences. You'll see on the left-hand rail, the candidates can filter by location or level or department or even topic. And it gives candidates a way to engage with the teams they might be joining before they would actually make the decision to come on board. So what's really nice is we include this link in all of our email confirmations, but anyone who's applied for a job has probably already seen it already. We're starting to engage hiring managers in new ways so that our hiring managers can actually record a video right after that kickoff meeting, and then we could send that video to prospective candidates as we're sourcing and say, hey, actually meet the hiring manager for this role. Here's why it's a unique opportunity. I mean, who wouldn't love, right, to come on site having already met all of your interviewers through this experience? So again, it's all automated through that one link. We never have to update anything to get this distributed to our candidates. So I want to make sure we're touching on the why, not just the how. I know a lot of this is operational work, but it does tie to our greater culture strategy. It's really about setting candidates up for success and making sure that they feel really welcomed and supported when they come to interview with us. We all know that interviewing can be a pretty daunting or emotional or anxious situation on its own. And so by removing friction from that experience, we hope that candidates can show up and just be their best selves. I mean, we've heard a lot of people talk about in the last 2 days bringing your whole self to work. We want our candidates to bring their whole self to their interview. So employee experience is something that we're known for at DigitalOcean. It's part of the reason we have a larger than average people team. And it really is to just ensure that employees feel supported and welcomed in our environment. And so when we're thinking about candidate experience, not just with these candidate prep resources, but all elements, and you'll hear me reference a few more examples, for us it's extremely important that we're keeping consistency from that candidate journey to the employee journey. And we want candidates to know that what they are experiencing during their on-site is they can expect that same level of support when they join us as an employee. So that takes us to the on-site experience. And we've been spending a lot of time this year kind of figuring out new ways to take the lift of on-site coordination off of our team. Again, we're just 2 coordinators. We have more open jobs right now than we've ever had in the past. My team has not grown in over a year. So we're trying to find ways to really hold hiring managers and interview teams accountable for ensuring a smooth journey and take some of that operational work off of our plate. So that starts with travel. I mentioned that about 60% of our employees are remote, so we do have quite a few candidates who are traveling to visit DigitalOcean in New York for their interview. We never require that anyone come to New York. It's really just an invitation in case they want to see the office. Some choose to come, some don't. So that first step is getting their travel booked. Now, we've actually partnered with a travel technology company that takes the travel management and booking experience completely off of our plate, and they have a 24/7 in-house support team. So they basically take care of everything for us. And what's great is it's actually our corporate travel platform as well. So as our employee experience team was vetting new corporate travel platforms, I partnered very closely with them to make sure we could identify a platform that had a guest experience. So now our candidates, they receive a link, they get to book their own travel, there's rewards involved. It's a really exciting and guest-oriented experience. And again, if there's a hiccup, which we know there often is, a flight's delayed, it's not my team's problem. We have a whole nother team to take care of that for us now. So we all know, though, even if the journey to the on-site is smooth, there are plenty of bumps to be had once they arrive, right? So how many of you have found out that a candidate is like sitting alone in an interview room for 5, 10, 30 minutes, right? It's the worst. And for our team, we're sitting in the office, we're scheduling hundreds and hundreds of interviews. We don't have the bandwidth to be micromanaging everyone's interview schedule, making sure that these adults are showing up for their meetings on time. So we've been using Slack in new ways this year, and you by no means need to have Slack. I know a lot of people probably don't. You could do this in an email thread, in a Google Doc, even any instant messenger platform. So what we actually do, and I'll share in the appendix like a full sample communication, but we actually send out we create a new Slack room or Slack channel for every on-site taking place. With all of the interviews, interviewers, we drop in the interview schedule, the hiring manager, recruiter, and coordinator, all part of this group. We share reminders about how to ensure a smooth on-site journey. We give tips on candidate experience. We remind interviewers that we actually track every time one of them reschedules, and we remind them of how many reschedules they had in the last month. And so by putting this all out there in front of the whole interview team, it's actually really embarrassing if you need to reschedule your interview, right? Because like your whole team knows it's happening. Your hiring manager is in that room. We also include like links to different things that they can check out if they need tips for building their interview kits and questions. And so it's all automated. We use a really cool tool called Typinator. Has anyone heard of it? Extremely inexpensive, but it basically allows you to use canned responses all over your computer. So we have every single repeat communication like these Slack rooms stored in this Typinator system. And so with 3 keystrokes, our recruiting coordinators can drop in this entire guideline of how to engage in the on-site stage. Here's just a quick example of what that engagement looks like. I know it might be hard to see. So I mentioned we track all of our reschedules. We do share them up to the leadership level on a quarterly basis. We share them internally with the recruiting team monthly. It's pretty embarrassing how many reschedules we have, so I'm not going to share that data with you, but we also look at what portion of our reschedules were requested by the hiring team compared to the candidate. No surprise, the vast majority is from the hiring team. But you'll see here, this was actually an on-site that I was a part of and I was sick. They pulled in my manager at the time. He then joined the Slack room, jumped in and took my spot. So again, we're always encouraging our interviewers, find a replacement or swap slots before you reschedule, and they can kind of use this Slack room to manage that within their own teams, rather than pinging us individually and saying, hey, I need you to find me a replacement. One thing we've also recently started doing is at the end of the on-site interview, we will chat into this group and say, please give me a thumbs up when you've submitted your scorecard. We will not archive this channel until you've submitted your scorecard. And so again, we have the hiring manager in that channel. They can see the one interviewer that hasn't done their scorecard yet. So it helps just to hold everyone accountable, puts the pressure on a little bit, but in a very DO playful way. So jumping ahead here to our last stage, we really don't want our candidate experience to end with a hiring decision. We want to keep nurturing our applicants, especially those who have potential to join us in different capacities in the future. So we're growing so quickly that the role someone may interview for today, we may have a better role for them in a year that doesn't exist right now. So we've put together a few different programs. Today I'll highlight just 2 that help to keep our past applicants connected to the company in ways that they could potentially join us in the future. Starting with a talent community nurture program. So we launched a nurture program in 2018 using a platform called Eightfold. Eightfold AI integrates with our ATS, and it actually aggregates updated social profile data for all of our past applicants. So for example, it'll look at an applicant from 3 years ago, show us what they're doing now, and actually map them back to a position that we currently have open. But through this platform, we're actually able to send recruitment marketing emails to a group of we've narrowed it down to about 30,000 candidates. So these are past applicants. We filter it down based on the stages that they reached, or the rejection reasons, or their suitable work locations, because we do get folks applying from places where we're not able to employ. And so we've built this community where high-performing past applicants can stay engaged with DigitalOcean and learn what we're doing now. So we send out monthly blasts with product info, marketing info, job info. There's always a link at the bottom to view our open jobs. And so we've gathered some really meaningful engagement. You'll see here we've sent over 250,000 emails in about the last year and quarter. Similarly, 15 on-sites were influenced, and we had 5 hires come from this program. And on my side, it's a really light lift. I just basically type up a nice little marketing email that's no more than 3 to 4 sentences once a month, and it gets sent right through this tool with all of the engagement is automated, the tracking, and sure enough, it matches that same branding that you saw earlier. So again, keeping that consistent experience from our past applicants, our future applicants, and also our past employees. So that takes me to our alumni community. How many of you are part of an alumni community with a past employer? Just a few. So I'm part of 3. They've always been really wonderful. I've really loved being a part of those spaces, and so we did create one at DigitalOcean. So our alumni community, we consider it any former employee who remains a cultural ambassador of DO's culture and values. So we've actually automated the entire invite process. We use a tool called Autopilot. So all I need to do is drop the email address of a former employee onto a spreadsheet, a Google Sheet, and the rest is done. They receive the same branded email that you've seen earlier, with details about the alumni community, dedicated alumni referral bonuses, alumni benefits in the form of a hosting credit, invitations to join upcoming events, all the good things. They get a reminder in 7 days if they don't take action on that first email, which is to join this dedicated Slack workspace. So not only is it really nice that we just have this community of really engaged past employees, there's a huge recruiting and candidate benefit to it. I mentioned we have a dedicated alumni referral program that pays out a bonus in a similar structure to our employee referral bonuses. So we've seen a few referrals come through. They're still in our pipeline. We haven't made any hires there yet. However, just this year alone, we've hired 4 boomerangs. So we've had 4, and we're a 500-person company, so 4 is a lot. We've had 4 people who worked for us in the past come join us in a new capacity. I'll share one example. We had someone who was a product designer on our user experience team a number of years ago. And at the time, there was only one leadership role in user experience. He went on to gain experience elsewhere, and he's most recently come back as a manager of product design, a position that we did not have the capacity for at the time that he was with us. So that type of engagement for a pretty little lift of just sharing jobs with the community regularly and sending out some cute articles when we see them, we've automated different content to pull directly into the group as well. So we have Slack bots that kind of do the content management for us. But it's been a really nice way to keep that community engaged, and it's really wonderful when you see employees welcome back these former employees with open arms. So I know we're running up on time here. I've got about 4 minutes left. I do want to save time for questions. I know that a lot of this probably feels daunting. I want to remind you that this did not happen overnight. These are projects that spanned across 2 years. The support of my recruiting coordinators and the recruiting team, who of course adopted all of these best practices. But if you can walk away from this session with just 1 or 2 actionable items that will improve your candidate experience in a really automated and, can't stop using the word, but scalable way, whether it's reformatting 1 or 2 of your email templates in your ATS, or sending a quarterly newsletter to your alumni just with what your new jobs are, or maybe it's just building a nice tip sheet to send to candidates or for recruiters to leverage during their prep calls, it really does go a long way. And if you can start doing this now before you continue to grow, it really does change the way that candidates experience your on-site or your interview journey, but then also how they come and join you as an employee. Like, they come on such a great note. Here's that sample Slack room I promised to share, and we'll be sure to send these slides out.